Another day of SSL Premier. It is me, Valdez, joined by Wolf. As always, we're jumping into playoff day number 2, essentially the semifinals. It's going to be Dark versus Classic.
That's right, and the winner will move on to the finals. So could have a PvP finals of Classic versus Stats, or we could have the rematch SSL finals of Dark versus Stats. So it will all be decided tonight in this final best of 7 in our gauntlet. We're heading into it. It's going to be, I think, a tense one. It might not be as close as our last one. We might not see a comeback. Dark comes in as the very clear favorite in this matchup, and it's really exciting to see, though, how Classic will approach it. Will he take his old style, or will he try something different?
Well, he definitely has a lot of information, right? We did go all the way to Game 6 of Dark versus Deer. Deer showing a couple of very clean practice strats, and it worked twice in a row against Dark, and people were beginning to question, is Deer actually going to upset this guy? And then Dark just slapped him down and said, no, fool, you're not going to win against me tonight. So Classic has some information for sure. Dark did show a bunch of his builds, 6 of them in a row against another Protoss. But again, Dark said before, he feels a lot more comfortable against a more predictable Protoss like Classic, which is part of the reason, even through going through the VODs, we can clearly see that Dark kind of has these normal Protosses figured out. Yeah, definitely true. And I feel like you could see the punish play for Classic's passive style in their regular season match against each other going into their first map. It was, of course, on Abyssal Reef, where Classic was countered by the Broodlord style that Dark brought out very early when he decided to take his, as I like to call it, kind of his recipe for success. Step 2 is the second phase, step 3 is the third, then step 4 is the fourth, but he never put any pressure on Dark and left Dark full control over the map. And it was a smart idea, I think, at the time, because Classic was so knowing that Dark was such an aggressive Hydra Baneling player. But when the opposite was used, when Classic, faced the more slow style, the more greedy style from Dark, it didn't work out as well. So I think there's definitely different ways that clash of style can occur when we get into this best of 7. Will Classic play the passive style again, or will he try to be a little bit more aggressive, bring some more Oracle builds in? I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to mix it up, or he is going to struggle. Well, I can guarantee you, Wolf, I can guarantee you, viewers, that we will see at least one triple Stargate Oracle. I think it's not going to be any surprise if we see that at least once. It was what Deer found success with up against Dark, and the second he changed it, that's when everything started crumbling down. But again, Dark, it feels like he had it figured out eventually. He lost to it twice, and then he's like, okay, I think I see what you're doing. He was scouting for it. He was preparing for it better. But again, at the same time, he has said before that it's that one build that he feels like is just really overpowered, and he's like, these Oracles, so soggy, so overpowered. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if Classic is really going to deviate. Excuse me, I don't really think he is. What are you thinking, Wolf? I mean, I don't think so either, and I think that's what I think might be one of his biggest weaknesses going into this series, is that he's so known for being a late-game player, so known for getting to that late game safely and soundly. That's why he defeated players like Solar in the matchup so carefully, very calmly, and when he goes against a player like Dark who knows how to respond to that type of style, even though Dark himself is very aggressive, maybe he will fail, maybe he will struggle. Yeah, well, guys, we're going to jump into a VCR with some interviews with the players. Let's go ahead and watch those.
2015 시즌에 우승한 이후로 결승전 자체를 가본 적이 없어가지고 이번이 또 결승 갈 절호의 기회다 보니까 정말 너무 가고 싶고, 제가 또 작년에 스타리그 4강에서 4대3으로 졌거든요. 작년에도 한번 결승 진출을 좌절을 맛봤기 때문에 이번에는 꼭 잘해가지고 결승 가고 싶네요. 영우가 옛날부터 제 앞길을 많이 막기도 했고, 원래 이렇게 옛날에 좀 팀원들끼리 이렇게 팀킬을 해서 이기면 뭐 밥을 사준다든지 좀 원래 그런 게 있었거든요. 영우는 뭐 이기기만 하고 뭐 이렇게 사주는 것도 없고, 인간 박영우 별로죠.
보호 형한테 좀 미안한 마음은 있어요. 자주 만나기도 하고 좀 중요할 때마다 제가 많이 이겼어가지고, 그래도 뭐 어쩌겠어요. 승부의 세계인데. 보호 형도 그렇게 애를 살려줘야겠다라고 생각하고 하진 않았을 것 같아서.
정말 지금 생각해도 약간 후회되긴 하는데, 저도 사실 신영이랑 이제 첫 세트 이겼을 때 2대1로 이기는 게 뭔가 좋을 것 같다라고 생각을 했어요. 아무래도 영우가 더 부담스럽고 진영이가 잘해가지고 제가 한 2대1로 이겼으면 좋겠다 싶었는데 솔직히 이기고도 약간 찝찝했어요. 그래도
보호 형은 그래도 4대2?
이긴다면 쉽게 이길 것 같지는 않고 제가 작년에 4대3으로 졌는데 이번에 4대3으로 이겨보도록 하겠습니다.
다둔제에서 항상 이겨가지고 별로 각오를 다질 필요도 없을 것 같아요.
제가 항상 저그전에서 많이 떨어져가지고 작년에도 그렇고 저그한테 약한 모습을 많이 보여드렸는데 이제 또 중요한 무대다 보니까 시간도 많고 준비 열심히 해가지고 이번에 꼭 저그와 박명우 둘 다 극복을 해서 결승 가서 우승할 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 명우야, 이번에 내가 살려줬는데 포인트도 벌었고 상금도 3등 상금을 확보인 걸로 아는데 앞이 그만 맞고 이제 내가 이기고 올라갈게.
보호 형 이번에도 결승 잘 갈게요.
Make myself a king. I said, make myself a king.
Very interesting comments by both of those players. Classic obviously frustrated that Dark continuously gets in his way over and over, even going to the point of saying, this guy doesn't buy anything for me after he defeats me in big matches, which is pretty custom here in Korea. I don't feel like he's that great of a human being. And then Dark's like, yeah, I feel bad I keep getting in his way, but I'm getting in his way again tonight.
Yeah. Often in Korea, when you lose a finals two, you are invited to join the winner in celebration, and it's very rude to decline. So that's a very common thing that occurs after finals. We're not in the finals yet. In head-to-head total matches, 8-21 Legacy of the Void, 12-23 between these two players. Dark has always had the upper hand. In offline matches in best of series, 6-1 is Dark's score against Classic. Classic only defeated him once recently in the GSL in group stage, but he's always had the edge between these two. Remember too, as was mentioned in 2015, Classic did win that 2015 Season 2 championship. He defeated Dream, but in 2016 Season 2, he fell to Dark 4-3 in the semifinals, so ended up losing that. And now, in Season 2 of 2017, it's always the second season of SSL, these two face each other. We'll see if this time he can advance and move on to that grand finals. That's such an important thing to note, is that last time Classic was blocked from going to his second SSL finals to potentially be the only player to take two-time SSLs. Both of these players have the opportunity to take that title if they make grand finals and defeat Stats.
It would also be a good story if Dark makes it again. It would be the second season in a row where a Zerg gets his way through the gauntlet and makes it all the way to the finals by himself. So Dark trying to do that here and go up against Stats and do that repeat. As you guys can see from our Facebook Live poll event, Dark is ahead, about 40 votes. You can, of course, go on to the SSL Facebook and vote for whichever player you think is going to win this one.
Or whoever you want to win, I suppose, as well.
There's a couple of hearts over there for Dark, for sure. I know you and we did an after-hours video, as we always do. You can check that out on the YouTube. Go to Esports TV and search out After Hours. But we both expected Dark to take this one, 4-1, 4-2. And we were even saying on the way here that it wouldn't be out of the question to see a 4-0 tonight.
Yeah, I think momentum is going to be very important. Classic, three-time champion, a GSL champion. 2014, he defeated Sue 4-2. He defeated Dream in 2015, Season 2 of SSL. And he defeated Parting in IEM Shenzhen Season 10 in that international tournament as well. So he has won a finals against all races. He's beaten a Terran, he's beaten a Zerg, he's beaten a Protoss. He's no stranger to making it deep in tournaments like this. This is not his first rodeo, and he's been playing the game professionally since Brood War. So he has a lot more experience than Dark has, but in the head-to-head here against his former teammate, Dark has always found greater success, and especially recently in Legacy of the Void, as was shown earlier. The 21-8 stat feels painful. This player, Dark, did face off against Stats in that grand finals. He won 2016 Season 1. He wants to beat Stats again here, and he did just get defeated in Game 7 against Innovation in the GSL semifinals. So He fought that hard match against Deer, preparing for the Protoss matchup. Then he faced off against a Terran 5 days later on Saturday. Just lost that one. Now has to prepare again for Protoss. It's been a tough road for Dark, but he still comes in the favorite.
Yeah. It's crunch time for all the best players in Korea. You got or round of fours, you got finals coming up, quite literally here as a competitor. And we had the 4-man video where both of these guys were going back and forth, saying each other's races were OP, and they were doing it in the chat before Game 1 even started, saying Dark's like, oh, Zerg is the race that requires the most effort, and Classic's like, no, your race is busted. It's really going to come down to the games, though, and as Reed did say in that video, it does come down to the player at the end of it all. You can say what you want, but either way, guys, we're going to be jumping into game number 1 on Newkirk Precinct between Classic and Dark. Fly, better fly, Jin Air. Here we go, game number 1 has begun. And down here in the bottom left, this is Classic.
And down to the bottom right in purple is his opponent, Dark. So this is going to be a good one. Remember, Classic has map advantage. That's why we head to Newkirk Precinct. Always important to talk about these types of things. This is the same map that we've seen so many times Classic take that very passive defensive third base. This is also a common map where we see the Oracle openings into triple Stargate. So Dark has already shown that he's very versed at defending it. He struggled a little bit in the series against Deer, but by the end of the series he had already improved. He defeated Classic in 2 of the games where he was running that style last time they faced each other in regular season. So Classic may want to change it up here. And one way to change it up, even though it's not necessarily changing up his playstyle, but changing up the meta, is to just simply take a fast third base, use single Stargate Oracles to defend, get fast Psystorm, and deal with any pressure that comes his way. And I think that might be one way to just say, okay, let's not play the Oracle style Dark may be expecting, but also play into my style.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you here on this. You were talking about the maps. He doesn't only get number 1 map, he doesn't get the first map, but he also gets the second map because of the way it works, right? He can choose whatever map he wants second as his second choice, and Dark will almost 100% of the time have that map on his list, and it is Abyssal Reef. So because of the way the map picking thing works, you know, it's basically if both players pick it and it's really high up, it's bound to be picked and played in game number 1 and game number 2. So just because of the way the maps work, Classic essentially gets 2 of his picks right off the get-go. So we'll see if he can do a little bit better on Abyssal Reef. But I think the reason that he picks Newkirk Precinct is just because of what you were talking about. Go back to the basics of Classic style. Play that 1-gate Stargate, fast expand, storm early, deal with Dark's aggression, and then play late game. Yeah. And, well, we do have the Stargate on the way already. Not a big surprise there, but we do have an early Roach Warren.
Very early Roach Warren indeed. This is something that Dark mixed up, and this is one of the edges I think Dark has going into this series, which is crazy to think considering he just prepared for 2 different matchups. His matchup against Deer, his matchup against Innovation, he lost it, and yet still he has the most variety of builds we've seen of a Zerg this tournament. He's rushing out the Burrow here as well, but he has had, by far, the most build variety in this matchup. Different rushes, different tactics. He used Swarm Hosts against Deer, almost an unheard of tactic right now. So the Oracle might be the first thing to scout this, as the Adept is not going to be aggressive. He in fact cut Adept production and went into a later Warp Gate research to get his Oracle out as fast as possible. Second Adept is coming across the map here, but the Shade needs to see these roaches, and I think he did.
I don't think so. It's too small of a radius right now.
I think you're right, actually, with a new radius.
To see it.
Okay, sees some roaches this time for sure.
There he goes, yeah. So that is going to spark Dark to just run across the map right now. Immediately a Void Ray is on the way. But again, the only detection he has is that one Oracle. So he needs to keep it at home, and he needs to detect every single roach to stop this burrow.
At the same time, Dark will need to make sure his roaches are split if he wants to get the maximum amount of value out of how he will be detected by the Oracle. Looks like he's going to use a Drop Overlord to split units between the natural and the main base. And Forge, I think, would be the best tool, but he doesn't know Burrow is coming. That's ridiculous to expect. We don't see builds like this ever.
Oh, this is so funny. Dark is like, yeah, you want to play your style on Newkirk? No, sir. I'm coming into the main, and so far this is undetected. The Void Ray comes out perfect timing.
Sees it now. Now he wants to just burrow the roaches that are weakest. Oracle comes over here. He has Revelation, though, so the first reveal does come in. Needs to micro the Void Ray, though. It's not actually firing completely.
He's just running these away. You're right, that Void Ray is just hanging out.
Okay, does finally get that roach.
Revelation does last for quite a while, so you see Dark is just trying to spread it out and make the Void Ray really micro. At the front, the overcharge did come in, and Dark is restarting some drones. So.
Yeah, I don't think this got the damage done he wanted it to. And the real trade-off here is not that he, and obviously Burrow, so we have to explain too, Burrow does give roaches faster health regen, so that's why he's doing that. He's not like, maybe he can't see me, just trying to buy the longest amount of time with that roach. I think the big trade-off here for Dark is that he doesn't have a third base. In fact, I think he has a drone over there right now, and will eventually make that into a hatchery. He doesn't have a lair, and this certainly will eventually be detected. So Classic has good tech here, can make a third base. Dark invested a lot into this, didn't kill too many probes, so he's actually kind of down on workers. They're like on even workers, which is not good for a Zerg here.
Yeah. At the end of the day, doesn't look like this was worth it for everything that you did just mention. I admire Dark for trying something very new, very non-standard to try to get into the gears of Classic right from the get-go. We see it every time these guys play against each other. Dark is really the aggressor, and Classic sometimes just falls apart to the aggression. And so I don't blame him for doing a build like this. Game number 1. By the way, guys, we do have a second Stargate on the way. And he does have that Robo finished already, so nice composition actually heading across the map here.
He knows that Dark is very unlikely to have a Hydralisk Den at this stage, and so he knows that Oracles this early will just dominate whatever low Queen count he has, because he also knows there's no third hatchery. It was just recently started, will be finished now. So the air superiority and control is going to be so important for the follow-up attacks. There's a few queens here, there is the Spore Crawler in position, but attacking the front is more Classic's plan really than getting this harassed on. Just wants to kill the transfuse energy here a little bit.
Forces that Revelation out and actually buys Dark a lot of time. Question is it going to work out? Does get one Oracle, another one gets very low, but these valuable queens are going to be picked off. A couple of them will, at least.
I don't understand Classic's idea here. I thought that the Oracles were going to maybe try to bait out some transfuse energy and then go and fight with the ground army to attack the front directly. But instead, he continued to try to fight queens. He was trying to put the square peg into the round hole next to all the queens were together. Also, the Spore Crawler was there. Drawing the queens in the main, then hitting the third base, for example, with his air units that are faster than the queens, faster than the roaches, would have been a good plan, but I don't think that went as well as he would have liked. He still has the third base up, though, right? He knows that Dark did lose a lot of, make a lot of roaches, doesn't have that many drones, and he has the transition point. He's going into 2 Stargate Oracle, not the 3. But that definitely could have gone a lot better.
Yeah, I think the idea is because he had that follow-up Stargate and he wanted to cut down the number of queens, but the fight didn't go as he was planning and kind of just gave up from there. Do like your idea. We do have Dark going into Swarm Hosts again. We did see this against Deer, as previously mentioned. Did work out very, very well for him as he crushed them on Overgrowth with these units, but Newkirk is a different map. I'm excited to see what it can do on a map this large and this wide, if he can get them close enough. Keep in mind that he's also making 6 Infestors. 6?
Yeah.
Already, that's pretty gas intensive.
It is very gas intensive. He was mining only essentially gas from his third base, as the Observer showed us earlier. So he was operating on 6 gases to be able to produce all of these Infestors. If he gets just one good fungal off on these, then that could be it. He is revealed here, and those don't have enough energy. He didn't get pathogen glands. But he will have so many Infestors to work with when the battle occurs And it feels like this first game is just like a fanboy's dream, man. I mean, we started off with the Roach attack into the Roach drop. Then we had Swarm Host coming out after Oracle counterattacks. We're just going to just send 3 of these Swarm Hosts to harass the main base with the Flying Locust. This is unknown to Classic at the moment, so 6 of these will fly in. And they should kill a lot of probes because there's nothing really here to defend.
Well, Mothership, of course, is still in the game, so doing a good job, and yeah, he doesn't really target. But we do have this Roach attack coming in, but at the same time, the Fungal going on to all these Oracles, but there's no follow-up damage. The Queens are a little bit late. Another Fungal comes on in, and the 4th one is going to link up. Very nicely done here by Dark. Will take out every single last air unit that was attacking that natural.
Yeah, it didn't work when he tried to use it against Deer because Deer was still able to fire on his Hydras. The Oracles were still in range, and he had a ground army. In this case, all he was able to do was hit the hatchery because Dark pulled everything else back, so the Fungals just basically destroyed any opportunity for that to find damage, and that was very expensive for Classic. He lost so many units, and now we're just even going to see the solo 2 Locust harass coming over here. This one is spotted, but he has to be so careful. He doesn't want to trade units for Locust. And all the while, Dark is finally caught up in workers. You know, he's up to 72, 76 drones now. He has that 4th base coming up. His Hive is on the way. And he has certainly bought himself back into a fantastic position.
Somehow, some way, the follow-up from Classic didn't hit hard enough, and he gave Dark so much time to get an incredible economy. Already, the Hive is about to finish, with the Storm only starting now, and the upgrades behind for Classic. Definitely not what Classic fans are looking for, and not what Classic himself wanted to have coming into game number 1.
Yeah, and he's now finding himself down an army, struggling to get that 4th base up. He will be able to get it pretty soon.
He canceled Storm.
Yeah, this is...
He's taking a page out of Deer's book. He's like, yeah, F Storm, who needs that upgrade?
I guess he wants to have the ground armor and attack upgrades faster. This is smart. This actually caused some grief for Dark as well as these Void Rays shutting down the Locusts. This actually will find very little damage, maybe a probe or 2 if he targets. But yeah, I think that he just wants to get these ground upgrades and hit with like a Charge Zealot Archon attack or something without Storm before Dark has enough units to deal with that, because Locusts and Swarmos are very annoying for harass. They're not really great in army until you have a backbone for your army for them to fight behind. So I suppose the idea here with all the gateways he's making, because he's making a ton of gateways right now, I think he's going up to like 12, is to hit with this massive Archon Zealot Immortal timing. He has a few of these Adepts. He has a few Sentries for Guardian Shield. And he wants to just crush this army. The problem is Fungals will buy a lot of time against this. This is going to be so difficult to pull off.
30 Banelings. Yeah. 30 Banelings already. You can see the idea, I guess, get out more Archons, but think about just 2 or 3 Storms that could blanket the Banelings as they come in. They make your Archons so much more valuable. Is it really worth it to try to save that little bit of gas to skip Storm and get your Archons out earlier without having to morph them later? I don't think so. Here come the Banelings with nothing to stop them.
No, not very good force fields there at all, stacked on top of each other. Archons will eat a lot of Banelings, though. This is still a very strong attack from Classic with this lax AoE, and Hydras are just going to do so much. Fungals coming through. And
they're the Locusts. You can't run away now. The Fungals are going to keep you down.
They're all in here. That is going to be the end of this attack, and I think very likely the end of this first game. Locust still finding damage back at home. That is going to be game over. Dark will take the first win here in unconventional fashion, to be totally frank.
Yeah, the mastery of this matchup that Dark has right now and the number that he has on Classic. All things we've talked about coming into this one, but he's putting on a show for us in game number 1.
Well, Psystorm's restarted now.
It's good to get your Storm now, isn't it? Look at all those juicy Hydras you could have been storming.
There it is, GG.
That sucks.
I feel like this is a very different situation to what we saw from Deer canceling his Storm. I think we'd be a lot...
Yeah, it's definitely. It's more of like Classic making a more rational or irrational decision, having more time to make a decision that we can say is somewhat irrational at this point in time.
I think his decision to attack was definitely incorrect, and so by proxy, the Storm cancel was incorrect. I think if he was not going to attack, and just sit back, he wouldn't have canceled the Storm. And I think he didn't need to, but I think he incorrectly assumed that Dark was further ahead than he was, and that if he just took a 4th base and got Storm, then Dark would take the entire map and get Brood Lords, and he'd have a very similar game to their first game when they faced off against each other in regular season.
Yeah.
But because he was going to attack and he needed that 2-2 ASAP and he added all those gateways, I think if you're going to attack, you should remove all the other variables from the game. If you're attacking, I think you can cancel Storm there, but I think attacking was the wrong decision because he would have never had energy during the attack to Storm. Why did he attack?
I feel like having Storm makes that attack like 3 times as strong, though, because you go in there, you can storm all the banelings. They don't run through your charge zealots to start. Then you have your High Templar with leftover energy to feed back the Investor so you can run away from the Swarmos, the Locust. You can even storm the Locust. The Storm is just so... The High Templars in general are so important in that fight. And he made the decision. I'm not the pro gamer, but it's hard for me to understand right now, Wolf.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of reasons why Storm could have been so good there. I think he was just so hell-bent on attacking very quickly, which I don't think was necessary with Storm or no. The attack would have been better with Storm. He could have waited to get a larger army, get that Storm. He did not. I think he's a bit flustered already. That's a bad sign after game number 1.
You can see it. So let's jump into game number 2 on Abyssal Reef now. Here we go, game number 2. Already on the way down to the bottom right. It is Classic.
And his opponent to the top left, it is Dark. He has shown us so much depth in this matchup, more than anyone in this tournament has. More than Solar has, for sure. More than Bjall has by tenfold. And it's Roach attacks, it's Swarm hosts, Infestor play. Infestor is working out so much better because of how he used them differently than when he failed to find success with them versus Deer last week. Because this time he used them against Oracles in the mineral line. Once the Oracles were dead, Classic lost all map control. Oracles could chase those Swarmos around for days and kill them if they're trying to harass. Like, there's no protection against that, but once the Oracles are gone, then you just... Swarmos are going to harass you, you're going to get put on the back foot, you're going to feel trapped. And when you feel trapped like that, you feel like you need to attack. And I think that's why he canceled Storm. And I don't think it was the right decision, but I can understand at least the thought process for him for this one. More than Deers, which is where Deers was like, ooh, I really think that was the only thing you couldn't do was to cancel Storm there.
Yeah. I think for both players, where similarities may lie is that they both felt very pressured in that moment in time, and they made a decision that was a little bit rash, because we all know how important Storm is, especially against these compositions that these players are making. But hey, that was game number 1. At least Classic can kind of, you know, brush it off and say, we're going into Abyssal Reef. I lost against Dark the last time we played, but this is definitely one of my stronger maps. It's the map that I picked second, that I knew was going to come out second. So we'll see if Classic can redeem himself here and perhaps learn a little bit about Dark from game number 1 and gain back some of his confidence.
I want to talk about a few subtle things. Let's change topics too much that we just saw. First of all, I mean, I like to talk about psychology in a best-of-7 series. I kept accidentally referring to the last one as a finals, but it's not. Just a best-of-7. Like, best-of-7 and finals are, like, synonymous in my mind. We saw Classic pylon block, cancel the pylon, block a little bit, then made a pylon misplaced next to the hatchery to try to block again, then canceled it, then frustratingly whipped his probe around the main base because he sent it too early to make his pylon that was the Stargate pylon, and then he sat up in his chair and moved around and looked and made the most angry face I've ever seen Classic make. He is not in a good place mentality-wise right now going to the second game. Let's see if he can get it back together, because when you see a player making frustrated looks like that, accidentally misplacing a pylon, sending his probe out too early, and, you know, flinging it back and forth in his main base because he's frustrated, that's when the 4-0 happens. That's when you see these 0-4 losses with a devastated player.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the way that game 1 went, if Dark crushes him again in game 2, I think we can definitely see a 4-0 come out here. Not what the Protoss fans want to see, not what the Classic fans want to see, for sure, but I think definitely a change in mentality has to take place. I think Classic has to somehow, mid-series, gain some confidence, because he already said in the interviews, it's not a secret, everybody knows that Dark is really just crushing him every time these guys face, and it's got to be on his mind, but he's got to shake it somehow. The best of the best are able to shake it under the pressure, so Classic, a multi-champion here in Korea, definitely has the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I think that he's taking the right steps. He's going to go into the fast second Stargate with a Void Ray this time. He's going back to what's comfortable and what Dark struggled against. He scouts out the Spore Crawlers with this first Oracle. He's just going to use a Stasis. Okay, well caught here by Dark. Very difficult to react to that on time because you don't get an alert. So he's just scouting out where the Spores are, where he wants to follow up attack with his Oracles and the Void Ray. Shows the Void Ray now. Clear up this Overlord. So we're heading into that Stargate-esque play. Dark is playing normal. He's getting +1 attack for his Zerglings. Third base is up. Spores are up. And is continuing to make queens. So he's very well prepared for this.
Yeah. Dark is a very smart player. I'm sure he's reading Classic right now. You know, he sees the Stargate again with the slow Overlord and obviously the Void Ray once again. And he's like, okay, I need to be ready for triple Stargate just in case. And he is already preparing very well. He's got a Spore at every base, 5 queens, making a 6th one right now. I think if he gets some more confirmation that he is going double Stargate, we will see immediate response. You know, extra Spores, extra queens.
Yeah.
Classic is putting down his third base and is heading for this attack towards the natural, it looks like.
Just heading over here with a few Oracles and those Adepts.
3 Spores. This is what I'm talking about, just immediate response. He sees it, and he responds right away.
Dark did also just make like 19 Overlords all at once, so he's got plenty of Overlord supply here. One
19.
thing he actually made 6, but yeah. It was not even supply buck, but made 6. So one of those things, he lost a lot of larva for that. He does just get his injects popping, but has plenty of Zerglings out here, it looks like, in Queens to defend this. Will now face the wrath of the extra DPS of those Adepts on the ground, though. That makes a large difference. But so do these Spore Crawlers. No cancel on the Prismatic Alignment.
And he loses the Void Ray. Loses the Void Ray, loses an Oracle as well. Ugh. Not the attack he was looking for, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Adepts, he thought would, I suppose, add the extra DPS he needed to burst down those queens. I don't think we've really seen this variation of the Oracle build yet, with the 2 Stargate with Adepts on the ground to kill the queens. Oh man, Dark is so proactive. He's going to go catch these Adepts on the map too, get a very efficient trade on them with the surround. Look at Classic's face, man. Not having a good time here. Now going to try to find Harass on the main base, and really all he's got is maybe the Infestation Pit he could try to poke at. It's a good scout that he sees it.
Yeah. This is actually the map where Classic was going for like big tech building snipes with Void Rays and Oracles, where he, I think he almost sniped the Hydra Den, or he did snipe the Hydra Den. But either way, we do have other stuff to talk about. Fleet Beacon on the way. 3rd Stargate is finished with the 4th base coming up. So Dark was able to hold off the attack, but he needs to identify now the overcommitments to the air that Classic is going for. This is not Twilight Council into Storm. This is +1 air weapons and carriers, and he needs to know about that ASAP.
Yeah. This is actually really smart, too, by Classic, because even though he failed to get damaged on, he keeps his air army alive. He saw the Infestation Pit, and that tells him, okay, I need to be ready. Oh, there's going to be a few snipes here.
Yeah, he finds a really good angle. This is way too many Oracles. He's not going to overcommit, but he gets a nice trade here.
He only lost 1 earlier, so he's still got a healthy count. But he struggled on this map in their regular season series when we saw the Broodlords come out earlier than he was ready for. He had a large Gateway army, he had Archons and Storm, but he didn't have any way. He had Immortals even, but he didn't have any way to deal with the Broodlords. Now he's going to have carriers. He will be able to make Tempest behind this once the Greater Spire comes out, but he's got 3 carriers in production before the Spire is ready. So he's going to have a really healthy count of carriers. There's not a large amount of Hydras or anything on the ground to deal with that right now. So I feel like even though his opening ended up being very weak, his next decision in his build, his next line of thinking is very strong, and he takes a lead in this game as a result. He kept those Oracles alive, and now Dark needs to identify this very quickly, or he's going to find himself further and further behind. He's not really playing greedy, he's playing kind of safe right now.
Yeah, well, he is taking his 5th base, but at the same time, as we were talking about, he doesn't have the information. He's just getting all the techs at once. He got up to Hive. He identified, hey, okay, this is going to be more of a laid-back game, but needs to get in there and see these carriers. He goes in. He sees, hey, there's not a lot of gateway units on the ground. He's poking and prodding with his lings, and so that might be able to tip him off. He starts his Greater Spire now.
This is actually something that Classic is just so good at, is base defense. And Dark not respecting the stasis ward there. Base defense, his gateway wall here. And now his carriers are in range to where if the links had been there, I would have seen them, but he had them hidden before. The mothership was hidden as well. And we are seeing Corruptors starting to make their way out, but I'm not sure if he's making those because he thinks he needs to deal with the Air Army. So he doesn't have any Hydras. Ultras aren't going to deal with this Air Army very well. And 3 Corruptors, that's a meager motley force that will just be simply ignored by Classic. I don't think Dark has fully realized what's coming. Maybe he's just going to make 3 Broodlords right now, which is not what he needs. I'm not entirely sure if he's seen it.
Okay,
Okay,
he's coming in. Now he knows.
He knows now.
Interceptors spotted. Mothership spotted. What will be the response? Greater Spire about to finish. 5 Infestors on the way with the Burrow that was already being upgraded.
I wonder if he'll research Neural. Nope, gets the pathogen glands instead.
8 spores, 10, 11, 13, 14.
He knows that there's a timing where the carriers can really start to wreck him. That's not Classic style, and he probably won't try to hit that. But he does need to be careful of that. These will always be useful in the late game because they will kill Interceptors so quickly. They will kill Oracles so quickly. And it makes it difficult for the Protoss to advance through the base. Because, yeah, you can target them down, you can kill them quickly with carriers, but it takes so much time.
This just reminds me of old Zerg versus Terran Mech, right? When it was like, okay, I know you're going back, I'm going to take every base on the map, I'm going to get every upgrade possible. I'm also going to make ridiculous amounts of static defense so that I can delay and buy time for my little moves like this, a Zergling drop, to do some damage for me to be able to poke in the back door, because Classic, he's doing the same thing. He's getting every upgrade. He's getting Storm. He's got, you know, all the upgrades on the way. We'll see how he deals with this drop. It is only 24 lings. He's
trying to distract him with these lings too in the third base. Okay, does send the Oracles home here. Does actually not quite have +3. Yeah, it does get that Forge. He doesn't quite have +3 for these lings yet, so this is mostly just going to be cleaned up. Forge is nice to get. And that's going to mess up this wall, and does remake that now. Doesn't have a single force, so can't make photon cannons, which is very annoying.
Neural's on the way.
There it is. You know, one of the tools of Zerg against... Oh, there's that Space Shark at the weird angle we saw only in rehearsal.
It's been revealed.
So where was I going with this? Oh, okay, yeah. So the big tool for Zerg, one of the best things they have in their arsenal against late game, whether it's against mech or whether it's against late game Protoss, is tech switching. And in order to be able to make massive tech switches, you need to have static defense and you need to have a bank. So that's exactly why, as you were saying, they mass up the static D. They take the entire map. They build that bank that Dark is starting to build now with 1,500 gas, so that maybe later he makes a 30 Mutalisk switch or a giant Hydra army or whatever is required. That's the strength of late game Zerg, is they can make units quickly if they have a large enough bank. Because of how Larva works, Protoss cannot suddenly remax 16 more carriers. That's not how Protoss works. So you defeat the army once with your tech switch, you win the game, but you need a bank to do that.
Oh boy, my favorite, harassing Ultralisk coming into the third base. There is a really nice wall set up. This will force the recall of the entire army that was out clearing out creep, trying to begin that push for Classic, buying Dark a lot of time to begin making his Vipers, which I was about to mention is another very important unit against big death balls, but also 9 more spores.
9 more spores. Feels like I'm watching
extra bases.
So I'm watching recently retired Startail Curious in the booth right now. This is something that he was very famous for, you know, back in like 2012, and then going into Pro League, he just never changed. He was such a defensive Zerg against late game Protoss. We saw so many games that he was in that played out like this. Dark was very famous for his games against Mech on Terraform as well, having this late game static defense, the tech switches required. And this is the Protoss version of Mech. Supreme late game, most cost-efficient army. Look at the upgrades tab. It tells the story of where we've gone in this game. And now just going to try to start sieging forward here with the High Templar he's built. If he could find a way to feedback all those infestors, that would be ideal, but it's just pretty unrealistic. Psystorm is probably his best option here.
Does have 5 High Templar with the army. Definitely will be a big point of contention, High Templar versus infestors. We'll see if he even knows about the infestors and the neuroparasites. Probably will be expecting stuff like Vipers, Corruptors.
Look at this stasis ward field setup here. We're going to see a ton of these spores coming over to help zone out this army. Feedback's going off here on the Viper. Okay, a ton of interceptors getting fungal. That's a big problem here, but we do see interceptors, or rather not interceptors, Queens getting feedbacked here.
And the infestors they're bungling, but they're all dying at the same time.
This was not what Dark wanted. This was very expensive.
Okay, they're in the neurals, but they're kind of just a funny afterthought at this point.
Yeah, and unfortunately the ones he knurled were like almost out of interceptors anyways. Really unfortunate there. And this is such a great trade for Classic now. Neural comes in again to just try to pull this into the spore colonies.
We do have 27 Corruptors on the way, keep in mind, so that is about to hit. He's going to need to recall. I don't think he can take this fight against this many Corruptors.
Yeah, he's preparing for it. He just grouped all of his carriers. He's just going to kill this hatchery and then get out. In fact, he might just get out before. Zealots did kill that top right base that was being built. He needs to get out of here now. Does release the interceptors. Wow,
that
well done.
Went down. Yeah, nicely done.
Zealot's still harassing here, and Dark just has this immobile army. It's mostly the Corruptors he built. How many spore crawlers? Let me check. 35, but where are the spine crawlers? Not a whole lot of those on the map right now, so Zealots are just getting so much damage done. These Zealots don't even have +1 attack, but they're still going to kill the hatchery.
He killed 3 hatcheries in that engagement, and he was able to easily recall, save most of his carriers, begin Void Ray production against the remax of Corruptors that we saw out of Dark. Liking Classic's play in this game, at least. Very calm, collected.
Okay, this that was a bit over. That Warp Prism harass was, that one's probably not going to happen, but yeah, he's calm, collected, as you say. He builds this really cost-efficient army, keeps it alive. Zerg's goal always is to crush the army once, and then it's all over. He's continuing to make spore crawlers all over the map, continue to spread his creep with his tumors to allow those to kind of group up and control the map. But look at what Classic is doing. He's preparing a ground transition. He's going to start Immortal production soon. He actually has Warp Prism speed on the way, so he can continue to harass. And he's getting the upgrades for his ground army. He's getting his Forge upgrades finally. Plasma shields for air, but also +2 attack, which means that later on his Archons are going to be better, his Immortal counterattacks are going to be better, and also just straight up, you know, the Archons need that DPS, the Zealots need that DPS when they go for harass around the map. He hasn't had to make really any Tempest this game. Brewlords have not been a factor, and again, this is just going to be another recall push to kill a hatchery. He waits for it so it can't be canceled, and now that it can't be canceled, he's going to kill it. Meanwhile, he gets the cancel off on his Nexus.
Yeah, Dark doing his own harass, though. You know, Classic has been on these 5 bases for quite a bit. I want to go ahead and check the mineral lines while we have some time. His third is beginning to run out here. Only has 4 patches left over, so he's essentially mining from 2.5 bases, whereas Dark has been able to keep this 6th base for up for quite a while. Does need a 7th base himself, though. The Classic has been very meticulous with taking out all of those.
Yeah, his base that he's trying to take around the, let's call it 8 o'clock expand, is going to be very important. There's no creep over there, so I think if Classic identifies that it exists, it will then cease to exist very shortly thereafter, but at least he doesn't know about it just yet.
I love how the Observer is keeping tabs on the one Zealot killing the spawning pool.
Yeah.
That might happen in this game, guys.
I think an Ultra is going to kill it.
There we go. It's like the only unit that Dark has on the ground right now instead of Infestors.
And drones. Like
yeah.
So these Ultras over here get caught trying to harass the Nexus skin. This is such a good move by Classic because he knows that the Ultras coming over is so predictable for Dark, because that's exactly how he denied the Nexus last time. This also... Oh, man.
That's going to be pretty nice. Gets 8 drones, gets away with the slight.
And he gets this hatchery as well, because he saw this when the Ultras came over. A few more drones do get bruised here and a few go down. That Speed Warp Prism getting so much value. This feels like a losing game for Dark. This drone comes over here, which is very indicative of how little map control he has, how little vision. He's like, oh, just go take that. Oh, there's already a Nexus over there. That's not good. Oh, man. His army is so immobile.
Classic is also preparing for the worst if it comes to it. He's making 8 Stargates. If anything gets taken out, he can make 8 units at a time with this massive bank that he's got going on here.
He just made a ton of cannons, too, in case of like a big Muta switch or something like that. And I think what Dark was missing and what he really needs, he will kill this base. What he's been missing is, I think, a large group of Zerglings to deal with the harassment that's been shutting him down all over the place. If he had Zerglings or even a few Banelings, then these Zealot-only harassments would start to become more expensive than they're worth value. Love that one probe, you just shift Q to make 1,000,000 cannons. Wish I could do that in Brood War. That'd be sick. Just gonna make that one probe, make an entire base with that Artosis pylon, and
everyone gather around the pylon.
Spines gathered around the hatchery right now too. Is finally we are going to see some more direct static defense to deal with the Zealot harass. Maybe that's better than the Lings because they'll just be more efficient.
He needs to keep a base at this point in time. He needs to be mining from somewhere else. And so far, Classic hasn't been allowing him to. And we have more storm drops on the way going towards that base. And
he like storms the one drone. Like
Spines aren't going to stop that, as it's nearly instantaneous.
This should be shut down.
Well,
or he just turns around at the exact wrong moment.
He's going to fungal it instead, I guess.
I guess the idea was he didn't want to get stormed on his Corruptors, but the Corruptors would have lived through that.
We got a big push by Classic. A lot of stuff is out of position here for Dark, taking out a bunch of these spores.
He's chasing a Prism with all of his Corruptors. By the way, didn't kill the Prism. And now this base goes down. His recall. See you later. Bye-bye. Oh, tried to neural it. Too late. Actually, I think it was controlled for just a moment there.
Yeah.
Still does finish its animation and get out. I cannot believe this Prism survived. I don't care if it dies right now. That's just amazing.
Oh! That hatchery almost died.
44 health.
Okay. More and more Infestors is the answer here for Dark. He has only made 3 Vipers so far with this army. He decides that Infestors will be his answer as he's made 14 of them.
So now this game is not going to be about necessarily, ooh, needs a target. Okay.
Oh, so close.
Oh
so
my God.
Close. 9 health. Might have been down to 8 actually, and it regened.
This game is not necessarily going to be about banks anymore, because even though bases are being denied, both players have a large bank. Sure, Darks should be higher. It would be happy if it were higher. But I think this game is more going to come down to one big fight, and then what the Remax comes with that. The Stargates will not really allow Classic to Remax per se, but if Vipers were pulling and killing his carriers, or if Neural Parasites were pulling and killing his carriers, consistently could replace them one by one. Looks like something finally killed that.
Might have just given up on life eventually. He's like, I've had enough of this. That's the group of Zerglings trying to harass. Didn't do much, as there's about 9 cannons having a ritual around the Artosis pylon.
I think that might have been a Zealot that just barely survived somehow from the last attack. That Prism dies. He should have enough energy for a recall here. Well, he's playing with fire, moving around this far. There's no retreat path here if he gets caught. Here come the Infestors. Needs the Neural right away. Doesn't get it. Gets a Fungal instead.
Immediate recall.
Yeah,
nice respect out of Classic. He's like, yep.
Not worth the risk. Not worth the risk.
Yeah. That's a pretty scary Zerg army.
Those Interceptors are like, oh my, carriers are on the other side of the map. We gotta go home. Carriers belong. Where I belong with my carriers. I'm gonna fly over 500 Spore Crawlers to get home. I don't care what it takes.
Flying south for the winner.
Well, these don't have enough energy, sadly. The saddest drop of all time. New Guinness World Book of Records of saddest drop.
Yeah,
least effective Prism drop. Well, all these will finally regen. So they were actually taking damage off creep. They'll regen once the creep goes through. That's why they were damaged. It's a very rare scenario we ever see spine crawlers take damage off creep. We'll finally get that spawning pool. And it's just going to continue to find ways into the main base with prisms, with speed. It's incredible how much more proactive Classic is able to be with this army.
That Ultra Den is being focused down. I like that Dark, though, isn't overreacting. Even if he loses tech structures, that's not the end of the world. He can't lose this hatchery but
I don't know if he
as I
can
say
save
that,
it, though.
I guess he can't save it at the same time. Can we get a pull here? Can we get a yank? Doesn't look like it. The feedback comes in and
High
denies
Templar
it.
in perfect position for that. There's the recall. He's going to lose some Templar. That's okay. Much more successful attack here. It's unfortunate the Dark just doesn't actually have enough. He doesn't have units that could be used to harass efficiently anymore. The Ultras were his last line that could do that. And Zerg doesn't have a Death Ball that can move across the map, smash a base with Sag Defense, and then teleport back like Protoss does. So Classic is winning this long, long war of attrition through these hatchery snipes because Recall is a pretty strong ability where you can literally just teleport home. And that's what we're seeing here. Now he's adding Tempest into the composition so he can start poking more consistently against the Stag Defense to eventually end the game later on.
Dark has made his own swell of Broodlords as well. He has 7 on the map right now. So
Another dead hatch.
need to be able to poke that down.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a very important thing to mention is, yes, the Tempests are going to be required for that as well.
Remaking a spawning pool 25 minutes into the game.
24-52, come on.
It's true.
Well, I was going to mention as well, one of the reasons why he threw his probes away earlier was to have a larger army size. That will be not the reason why these probes are dying, but just wanted to explain that earlier. Those probes did get picked off. He's down to 52 workers. Does have the smaller army, but it's weird to say this, but the more mobile army because of recall. His army is not, by the way, more mobile, but because of this ability to recall and then fight more efficiently off creep, he can go to the hatcheries that aren't on creep and then recall home, or just go to the edge of the creep like this, kill a hatchery again, and then peace out.
Trying to get that yank.
Oh, there it is! Finally, he gets it!
And he does take it over with the Neural Parasite, but at the same time, everything is revealed. Classic can see the units up Dark.
Oh man, Archon doing so much on the ground here. No Spine Crawlers on the ground. Look, that Archon is free to do damage. Finally, he does knurl it. Well, look at the rest of the Archons here. He needs to have more ground army.
He's waiting, and this is going to be his moment. Dark is pushing in, but more Storm to push him back.
Yeah, Cloaked Overseers aren't going to be what saves him here.
Can he snipe this out? Looks like he should be able to. He's getting to work actually on the units that do damage. He's going to take out the Tempest and the carriers behind this mothership.
Okay, the one Archon here. Can it kill those kill those Corruptors? No, does get taken out here.
It. And so the Remax comes in for Dark. He's actually lost a bunch of Overlords.
Yeah, he needs to rebuild those. This hatchery is going to get taken out by Zealots again here. They do finally have the +3.
Yeah, this was the moment for Dark to remax and then go attack before Classic could remake Tempest, but because he got supply blocked, this is going to take a lot longer, especially with those slow Broodlords.
Yeah, I feel like the Broodlord should be flying towards the base, not flying to kill the Zealots. I think he's on F2 mode right now, because if the Broodlords were attacking the base of the bottom left right now, I think there's no way Classic saves it before he gets those units out, but because he set them to defend Zealots, and also failed, by the way, to defend against the Zealots, now he's making 8 more broods, sure, but this gives time for Classic with the 8 Stargates you mentioned earlier to rebuild those Tempests. And look at Classic's bank too. He hasn't even decided yet what he wants to build because he can build whatever he wants.
He's like, okay, 4 Tempests, 8 High Templar. Seem to be the answer. Not keeping any of them in High Templar form. Already has 6 of those out here, so going to just remake 4 extra Archons. But the banks are being depleted. It looks like Classic is running out of gas, but has nice mining on it. Still about 700
He's mining. He's mining way better than Dark, and he still has those 2 assimilars at the bottom left that aren't even mining. They could be mining even better than what the UI will show you.
Right now.
So
yeah,
I think this is Dark's moment. Like he had a stronger moment, as you said before. That was his moment where he lost the Overlords, couldn't remax, couldn't attack there. He decided not to send his Broodlords. That was his biggest, greatest moment, I think, to really get some damage done. And now is his second opportunity. He needs to get massive damage on this. Could not be a mediocre attack. I think this needs to be the killing blow. In terms of economy right now, he cannot recover without destroying bases, without killing expensive Protoss armies.
The mothership is morphing at the 6 o'clock base, I guess you could say. So he is about to get that up. More nice harass out of Classic, who first and foremost remade 2 into Warp Prisms to continue to harass. He knows how much value he's getting out of this. Takes out another one, and he takes out both of the Spires as well.
Greater Spire and regular Spire. Nothing to deal with this harass. Dark has just been torn apart all game long. We talked about how this is one of his weaknesses in late game when he played against Deer in their regular series match, or the regular season match. It was definitely a problem. He never was able to consistently deal with Zealot harass, ever. And in this case, it's further a problem. He only made spines at this base once, and once the hatchery died and all those spines died because they were bleeding and he was attacked by the carrier army, he never rebuilt those. Zealots and Immortals just killed everything that he holds dear, and I don't even know if he has a spawning pool anymore to remake anything. Like, he has a lair so he can remake the Spire.
He's not even mining gas right now. Okay. He has to win with this army, basically. There's a chance he yanks the Mothership.
Mothership recalls, but it's not with the army now, so that's still a big win for Dark.
Very far away, but the Storms. And look at all those High Templar on the ground, though. They get bungled. They're going to go down. So no more Storms will be in this army, but can he make it past the wall of cannons?
I don't think so. And the problem is that he needed to do that. He needs to do this right now. Like, time is of the essence. So sure, he killed those expensive units, but because Classic has better mining right now, he can remake them. Dark has basically no money in the bank. And sure, Classic is low on gas himself, but he has consistent gas mining, 1,000 a minute. He can produce 5 Void Rays. He can afford 5 Void Rays.
He remade 7 High Templar, too.
Yeah, so he actually, even though that was a vulnerable moment for him, the cannons gave him that safe haven to back off to actually then rebuild these expensive units. And now even just Immortals poking over, he might even be able to save those. And these Prisms have won Classic the game. He's just consistently making 2 at a time of them, flying them around, always having Prisms available to use for harass. It really, I think, is the reason why he will eventually win this game, if he does. It's not over yet. There's still an opportunity for Dark to take an insanely efficient fight and smash him, cut off his production. But it feels less and less likely as minutes go by with a better mining here for Classic.
Yeah. Dark takes the safe approach instead of going for that one big fight that we were saying, the timing, right? He's like, okay, maybe I can stabilize finally and retake 2 bases. If he gets his own mining back, if he feels confident to remax and then fight against Classic, maybe he's got a chance. Obviously, he doesn't have the numbers right in his face as we do. And see, Classic mining 1,000 gas a minute, but definitely is an option for him here, especially with the very daunting cannon walls that Classic did have.
So what Classic's going to do with these Tempests is what I was talking about earlier. Sure, they're great against the Broodlords, but they're so good at killing spores. So the only way you can reliably kill late-game spore armies like this. This is why we had so many games in Wings of Liberty in this matchup that actually went for like over an hour with Archon toilets and stuff because there's no way to kill the spores. Now that Protoss can just reveal the spores with the Revelation and then just pick them off at safe range, and there's no threat, there's not a single Viper on the map right now, this is going to eventually lose control of the map to Classic for Dark. He's going to lose control of it, and he's just losing ground every time. It almost feels like his whole grand plan is to hope that Classic makes a big mistake, which can certainly happen, but he's never going to, even with the bases he just retook, be able to build a bank that's larger than Classic's, and he's losing ground. And I'm not entirely sure what his best plan of action should be. It's easy for me to watch and say, well, this isn't it. Losing your spores and just sitting there trying to get your bases up isn't it, but what is it? I don't know if there is an answer.
He needs to mine gas. That's for sure. He still hasn't been mining gas at those bases that he's retaken. Hasn't even made extractors at the new one over on the right side. If that was his plan to remax, he needs to get some gas here first.
Yeah, certainly does. I think he just feels defeated, I feel like I'm seeing the 4-man talk show Dark embodied here in-game as, he's joking that Protoss is a joke, it's the toughest race to play against, and are you kidding me when Classic says, well, I think all races are pretty decently balanced, but I think Zerg's hard for me. But when he's up in this situation, in Heart of the Swarm, Tempest Reducers, and in Legacy of the Void, whenever a Protoss ever got to this late game against a Zerg with max out with Tempest, I can't think of very many professional game examples where the Zerg won. And it's just because this isn't supposed to be allowed to happen. And the Protoss just was able to do this through greedy play. This is going back to, we were talking about Classic playing his style, playing defensive. His Oracle build in the beginning totally failed, didn't get damage done, but he made the transition to fast Fleet Beacon, fast carriers. He played greedy, got ahead, took those good engages. And it feels like it was forever ago, but it was probably about 20 minutes ago. But we saw that failed Infestor engage where he dove in with Dark did with his army and lost everything. I think that was really the big turning point, and Dark has just never since been able to recover. Gonna lose another hatchery here.
It's going to be the end of his mining, as he doesn't have any other bases, but still does have an army. He has to face the music and go for the attack. Unless he, otherwise he's just got a GG out of this one. Classic is inside his base, threatening a recall at any moment.
I mean, it looks like Dark is just thinking about Game 3 right now. He can't fight the army in his main base. If he tries to go there, he would just recalled. Well, he's not even sending his Broodlords to counterattack. He's simply doing nothing. Do we have an APM counter on here? He's down to 200.
It's almost like he's weighing his options.
Yeah.
In this game, he's like, well, I can't fight that. I guess I just retake the bases. You guys can see the banks down on the bottom. Dark is actually supply blocked at this moment in time. Can't even make units.
I think the Korean commentators literally asked, is he playing? And, I mean, he is now moving the Broodlords at least over to defend this hatchery. He's now retaken.
He's going to retake both.
Yeah, Birdling's over here. I mean, he's really trying to find any way to find something.
I hope you forget.
Yeah, that's literally the hope here.
One other thing is that Dark does have a couple of bases that have mining at them. The map is beginning to get mined out. Classic only has this base on the left side. So if he can secure these two bases and keep his entire army over there and just let go of the rest of the map and just say, okay, I'm not leaving, you need to attack into me. If he gets a really fantastic engagement in Classic, has no more mining, or maybe just a little bit left, and he, scrounges up a puny army to go up again against Dark, what Dark has left over, then maybe Dark has a chance here. He's going to say, I will fight over my spores to the death. I'm not moving out.
I
but
think
again, against Tempest, it's kind of hard to fight with your spores.
He can't... If he had a bunch of Vipers, maybe he could kill the Tempest. I feel like if the Tempest die, then he can kill the Void Rays. He has enough units. And then Broodlords will always, because Classic is so low on mining, or he will be very soon once all those bases mine out, Broodlords are his crown jewels. If he keeps those alive and someone gets a good trade and can kill the Tempest, again, this is really just like a big if, right? It was the biggest if of the season. But if he can do that, then the Broodlords will be unkillable, and he has so many of them, he could just sweep across the map. But killing these Tempests with only one Viper is just unreasonable. He's trying to mass Corruptors, and he can use what little Infestors he has left to maybe then kill the Void Rays in a good fight. But, I mean, this is just relying on Classic making big control mistakes he hasn't made all game. He's taken so many fights in worse scenarios for him against larger Corruptor counts, against larger Infestor counts, and crush them. So what reason would he lose the fight against the weaker Corruptor count, the weaker Infestor count? Yeah. It just feels like it's an impossibility.
You got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
When you're up against the wall, this is his only chance, and we're going to get to see it here.
Yeah, that's no more Corruptors now.
As long as Classic does attack, maybe he'll just mine out everything and then attack, as is the safest way to do it, I suppose. He can always throw away a bunch of workers first, after he's mined out, and then get that supply back, remake his gigantic army that Dark just can't really stand up to 200 supply worth. So I like that idea for Classic if he wants to take it as safe as possible.
Throwing all of his probes away to max out larger an army.
Is edging forward.
He is. He's moving the spores into good position as well. Okay, so probe's just going to delay this a little bit as he builds larger army. Getting more observers actually is his first goal in production.
Yeah, if you can take out all the spores, you can just sit the observers forward and do a nice job. You already have the oracles anyway, but
this mentality-wise in this game, I feel like Classic is doing everything correctly. Like, he's killing creep tumors with probes as he goes across the map. He's not fighting. He's just making Dark think about how hard he lost this game for even longer, and he's never going to make the one mistake Dark wants him to make. So mentality-wise, I feel like the longer Dark stays in the game, the more he frustrates himself going into Game 3. Remember, this is a player who just lost in Game 7, the GSL semifinals. This is it for him for the year in Korea domestically. This is his last tournament.
I think we have, like, still about a 10% chance that Dark wins this game.
Yeah, sure,
I think
certainly.
in Classic's mind, he's like, okay, I got it in the bag. This is pretty much done. Let me just be as safe as possible. But again, it comes down to the engagement. At a certain point, you have the same numbers. Will just do better than any player can out micro or whatever. But
he's going to toss down a fungal, but
a couple of fungals. He's laying down some damage, but
now that the observer's here, he'll never be able to get an infestor close enough to do that again. Okay, reveal's coming in here. The Viper is revealed. He's pulling back.
Very important.
He needs to make sure the High Templar are here. Here come the Storms. This is not going to be the fight that Dark can take. He splits the Corruptors really well. Only a few Storms going down.
The Viper is still alive. Viper is still alive here. Is he going to go for it? He gets it. There's the Neural.
Okay.
Here we go. He's going to snipe it down.
Okay, this is good, but he doesn't hit the Void Rays with the fungal. He only hits the Tempest.
Oh, and he moves forward with his Broodlords too, taking a bunch of damage here.
That's going to be it, I think. Can't fight this Void Ray count anymore. That should be it. That was his one last stand. 39 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. He's going to tuck tail and run with the Broods. But this game is certainly over now.
He's trying his hardest. But
he certainly is.
Yeah, even the Archon in position right there, in that little nook. Is this what it takes for Classic to take a game? I suppose so.
I think that's maybe what Dark's trying to do, is get into his head a little bit here, but I think he's getting into his own a little bit more.
Those Void Rays are getting low, but again, Storm's still available.
He also has 500 gas back at home.
Okay, he's going for a GG. Classic, finally, in 40 minutes and 13 seconds, takes game number 2, and we have a tied series between these two players.
We knew this series was likely going to be Dark favored. Might have even been a disappointing one. That was the expectation. No analyst is predicting Classic to win this series, but he wins game 2 in a long, extended fashion, and we were wondering, if he loses this game, is he going to just get totally crushed? Could it be the 4-0? His mentality is shaken. He starts the game frustrated. His Oracle build doesn't work out. But he does the most Classic thing that Classic could ever do, is he makes a Fleet Beacon.
Classic.
Yes.
I rewatched The Hangover recently, so. Yeah, there you go.
So he gets a Fleet Beacon. He gets carriers. He hides this from Dark. He takes the greedy approach against a Dark who's playing safe, gets ahead. And it was just so beautiful to watch. He took those smart engages against the Infestors, and then Dark just never dealt with his harassment. It's not like Classic just, if you're watching this and you're like, Protoss is just so strong they could just deathball their way. You're not paying attention, because I'm watching.
You weren't watching that game, obviously.
I'm watching 2 Warp Prisms flying around, killing Zerg bases nonstop with no defense, no reaction from Dark. He lost the game from the Prism and the Deathball Protoss that was designed to buy time to bring the attention away from the Prism. The greedy decision that Classic made was really awesome.
Yeah, so guys, that was a couple of long games, but we are going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, game number 3.